Greetings, family. This is Terry Riggs, Mr. Riggs in the house. This is Black Eyes TV, and we are in the UK and global. You know, we're around the world and we're back and forth. As you know, we had our brother Akim yesterday, and we have a special guest today. But before I go into it, I'm going to speak to my co-host. Introduce yourself, brother.
What's good, family? What's good? We out and about today. Black Eyes TV. Big up to everybody joining us live and dives on the roads of London on this hot, nice day. Big up to our guests. You get me? We're going to be chopping up about engineering and skills and how the youth view that. So I'm looking forward to the conversation as always. Like, share, and subscribe. You know the routine. I will put the PayPal link in the chat. So if you want to donate to that. Big up as always. Let's do this.
Okay. Yes. So I'm going to make the gentleman introduce himself, as you know, he's an author as well. So I'm going to let him lead the way in introducing himself and what he's about. Greetings, sir.
What's up, Black Eyes TV? Man, I love the title, Mr. Riggs. Excellent title for the show. My name is Keith Person, and I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles in California in the U.S. Background, I received my civil engineering degree in 1993, and then from there I received my professional engineering license in 2006. And I mean, that just came out of my mouth so easily, but my God, the path to actually get the degree and get the license was very, very difficult. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's hard to believe that I actually made it, because when I started college, I failed college algebra 3 times. 3 times. I never even made it to the hard stuff, you know, the calculus and all the other courses that engineering requires. So thank God that I had some mentors along the way, because, you know, without them, man, I would not have made it. Definitely.
Okay. You know, I want you to give us a kind of an overview growing up in LA, because, you know, a lot of people have always had their own qualms and how things are. But I've always heard a lot about LA and what's been going on out there. But I just want to see it in your perspective growing up.
You know, there's a lot to LA, you know, especially like back in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up. For the most part, you know, we as you know, Black Americans growing up in like South Central, for example, you could not leave that area without being pulled over by the cops. In other words, like in my book, I write about this invisible parameter around the hood. And as soon as you go west of Los Angeles, where I live, into like the Hollywood areas, or you guys are familiar with Beverly Hills, we were basically strictly prohibited from going to those areas. I never forget, I was riding my bike, and we were actually riding to Venice Beach, because believe it or not, my house was only maybe 7 miles from Venice Beach, but I didn't visit Venice Beach until I was probably well into my 20s, because we just couldn't venture out of the area. But one day we were riding our bikes, a couple of friends of mine, and we got pulled over by the LA County Sheriff. And I never forget what the guy told me. And at the time I was probably 18 years old. He said, "Boy, you guys need to go back to where you came from, and I don't ever want to see you in this part of town ever again." I mean, that's what the cops told us. So for a long time, I never ventured outside of my neighborhood, which is sad, because there's a lot more to to the world than where you live. And if you can't get out of that area, you have a hard time learning, what the world has to offer you. So, people talk about gangs. Yes, there were gangs all over the place. And it's weird because, people understand the Bloods and the Crips. You have the red and the blue colors and so forth. And of course, where I grew up, I guess it was considered, Crip neighborhood. So the color was blue. So even though I had no association, well, I take that back. I was not a gang member per se, but all of my friends growing up that I grew up with were in, gangs or connected in some type of fashion. So I just naturally adopted, the wearing of the color blue and just respecting them because, if you didn't respect the gangs in the neighborhood, you ran into trouble. So, so I tried to, always respect them. But of course, there were many times when other, gangs would, either come into our neighborhood or, if I ventured outside of my area, I would get caught up in the area where I shouldn't be. And, luckily, through the grace of God, I survived, the area because one of my best friends was shot right in front of my parents' house. Probably I think it was maybe 30 something shots that were unloaded on him. He actually survived because he jumped up under a car and then he pulled his body up so the bullets wouldn't hit him because the guy who was shooting was on the other side of the street. And the crazy thing about that was that I had just left him 10 minutes, prior. So, that could have been me. And, it was definitely pretty crazy growing up in Los Angeles. Now, you guys remember, of course, the recent protests. And the big protest that many people talk about was the '92 riots in Los Angeles. Rodney King. I was there. I was right there, and I'll never forget that day. I mean, it was almost like people were possessed, when that happened. And you just kind of fell into, the whole. I shouldn't even say riot. I should say protest because that's what it was. It was an actual protest that got out of hand. Because of course, a lot of buildings were burned. Like in my neighborhood, all of the grocery stores and the convenience stores, they were all burned down. So I remember those days very vividly, and I knew some people that looted as well. And I never forget, I have this one friend, he looted this one store and he took a crate of X-Lax. You know what that is, right? For constipation. I'm like, dude, you stole a crate of X-Lax. What are you gonna do with that? So anyway, those are crazy times back then. But I will say that, and I tell you this, and I tell everybody this, this was the result of Rodney King, and of course, the other young girl, I think her name was, she was shot in a liquor store by the Chinese lady. I forget her name, but anyway, after those riots happened, I didn't get pulled over by the cops anymore after that, because prior to the '92 riots, I kid you not, I got pulled over by the cops at least 3 times a week at gunpoint. 3 times a week. They would search my car, and they would tell me, you fit the description of a guy who just robbed the liquor store down the street. You fit the description of the drug dealer that we were chasing. I mean, 3 times a week, I kid you not, I was pulled over by the cops. But after Rodney King, it all stopped.
But do you find, I always ask this question, do you find the police system institutionally racist, or do you feel that it's the individual police officer that could be racist, or just don't condone and do their work in the right order?
I think the racism is at a much higher level, and it's so deeply embedded into the police organization that even cops that think they're doing the right thing are probably making it harder for, you know, African Americans, because you have to look at how cops make their money, basically, right, to get their funding.
Yeah.
And it's all based on numbers. The number of what? The number of arrests, you know, or the number of calls that they get for whatever, the number of drug busts that they do. So, so for example, if a cop arrests a kid and, you know, for drugs or whatever, and let's say, for example, the kid only has so much drug to where it doesn't even really count as a felony, you know. So sometimes, you know, the cops will falsify reports and say, instead of 1 gram of cocaine or whatever, I don't even know what that means, it's like 10 grams of cocaine, you know, something to that effect. And, you know, I'm not speaking, you know, out of the side of my behind when I say this, because during the I believe it was in the 90s, they had the Rampart scandal in Los Angeles, the Rampart Police Department, where you had cops basically trumping up charges so they can get, you know, people arrested. And as a result of that investigation, they had to let out like over a couple thousand people who had been arrested, you know, because of the trumped up charges. And during this time period, we had a police chief by the name of Bernie Parks.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably was the most honest. He was a black police chief too. And he was probably the most honest chief that I had ever seen. And they hated him. They hated his guts because, you know, if an officer did something, you know, he charged them. And the police force did not like him at all. So of course they got rid of him. And then we got this guy from New York. He was a police chief in New York at the time. He came over, I forget his name. And of course everything went back to normal, where they were arresting us in huge numbers and, you know, putting us away. And it just got worse.
So do you find that it comes as a like a number game, in the fact that we need to get as many as possible into the prisons institutions?
It is definitely a number game, because, you know, I always tell people, black people are the police department's bread and butter, because for one, cops don't patrol in Beverly Hills. You know, cops don't patrol in Brentwood, where, you know, O.J. Simpson lived and the president lived, and what's his name? The basketball player. LeBron James, you know, in those areas. Yeah, the cops don't patrol in those areas. So they have to patrol in areas where they think they can arrest people. Mm-hmm. And since we don't have a lot of power to fight back, they just take advantage of us. So it is definitely a numbers game. As a matter of fact, there was another book that I read, and it was about programs, right? Yeah. So the police department just came up with this program to actually fight crime. And what it does is it's a modeling program. When I say model, basically it's a program that tries to predict behavior of people, right? Mm. So and the one that I know that Los Angeles, the police department is using, is called perpetrator report. And the way it works is that, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. The way it works is that the program will try to guess if a crime will be committed in a certain area. Mm-hmm. So they'll send cops there to that area to see if the crime is going to be committed at the liquor store, right?
Yeah.
So if they see any black guys out there, they're gonna jack them up, right? And let's say, for example, the guys haven't done anything. They don't have anything on them, but they talk back to the cops. Well, guess what? Resisting arrest. So guess what? We're going to arrest you for resisting arrest. Well, so the question is, what did you do to get arrested for resisting arrest? There needs to be something before that, right? I never understood that charge, resisting arrest. I mean, it's stupid. What are you arresting me for in the first place? But so anyway, they arrest these kids, and then they take that bean count and say, we arrested this person at this store. So guess what? The program that you guys created for us at, $100 million, it works. So let's use it some more in the neighborhood and arrest some more black kids.
Yeah. So in looking at in the LA environment, and the youth, especially the youth, do you find that it tends to be a very high struggle in the situation as they are coming up with the influences of what's happening with the guns, the police, and how can a child able to see the light when they're going through these high obstacles of telling them to go left?
Wow, that's a very good question. Because, when you're in the hood, who has the money? The drug dealers, the people that do a lot of illegal activities. And so when you're growing up as a kid, you see this stuff and, your pockets are like rabbit ears, you have no money in your pocket. You want to emulate these guys. So it's very important for, our youth to get outside of their zone. And I guess the good thing that we have in our neighborhoods are, the community centers. We have, the YMCA, we have the Boys and Girls Club. But here's the thing, and this is really going to trip you out. When I was growing up, there was a Boys and Girls Club right around the corner. Well, about several blocks away from me, not too far. I never knew about it until I got much older, right? So a lot of young kids are not taking advantage of the opportunities that they have, in their neighborhoods. So I can definitely say that, these community centers and these clubs are very good for kids. But, some kids, they see them as not cool, nerdy, or, I don't have time to get up in the morning and go to this place. I have other things to do. So so a lot of our kids get lost, in the system, and hanging out. And now that cannabis has been legalized, there's a cannabis store on every corner in the hood, just like there's always been a liquor store on the corner, on every corner in the hood. So of course, back in the day, we had a lot of African Americans who were alcoholics. Now our youth are growing up basically just butted out on marijuana, So I mean, I guess in a way it was good and bad that cannabis, marijuana was legalized in the States, because for one, we're not putting, our youth away in jail for having a marijuana joint. But at the same time, we have a lot of kids who that's all they do is, do drugs. Yeah.
Yeah. So in LA specifically, because I'm always hearing the violence and things like that. But how would you able to see or galvanize the intelligent ones that actually want to do the work or want to go to school, if they say, for instance, their parents are taking drugs or selling drugs, but they have that potential to able to to exceed into the educational system or exceed to being an entrepreneur when, as I said, like these obstacles are in the way, but do they have places where they can go?
Wow. Huh. Ooh-wee. I guess I could start with myself as an example first. Like I said, when I was growing up, all I saw were the drug dealers, and they had the money and they had the women, and I wanted both. And so I knew that I didn't want to get involved in crime, so I just started doing my own little hustle. I collected bottles and cans as a young kid, and then eventually I got into electronics just by, messing around with stuff. My thing is wires, right? You see on the book, they're like wires and batteries and all that stuff. So I played with the stuff as a youth, and I was able to turn that into a business and made money with it by installing electronics for a lot of the people in the neighborhood. Now, as far as other youth finding a way out, here's the thing about the neighborhood, and I write about this in my book. There are a lot of talented kids in the hood. For example, there was this one guy that I grew up with. His name was Eric Holland, and he built lowriders. The cars that go up and down.
Yeah.
And what amazed me was that he would be able to take a car completely apart, all the way down to the last screw, and put it back together, in perfection. And what really caught my attention was, the hydraulic systems that he was actually able to wire and put together. And this was just him just taking stuff apart and, trying different stuff and making it work. He never actually, went to a university or anything like that, but he was able to make, lots of money, putting these cars together. And then I had a friend, his name is Joey Ellis. And he was so fabulous that he actually got a chance to work on the show. Remember the show Pimp My Ride with Exhibit? He was one of the guys who built some of those cars on the show. I think he made an appearance maybe a few times. He's in the background, but man, this guy was so talented. I mean, I'll send you some of his works one day. But I mean, he can take any car and just make it look futuristic, and it actually worked. And this guy, he didn't go to college either. So the thing about kids in the neighborhood, they are like college school. A lot of them are not really trying to see that. They're trying to make money other ways. I have another friend who started his own pest control business. Now he's bringing in about $100,000 a month. So there are a lot of people in my neighborhood who actually made it, without going to school. I mean, my thing is, I'd rather see you go to school, but if you work hard enough to where you can start your own business or figure out a way to make money in some other fashion, I mean, that is fine with me as long as you stick with it. But I rather see our kids go to school so they could be, much more well-rounded. And that is the hard part, because there are not a lot of outlets for that other than, we have these community centers. But, studies show that when you have older Black men in a neighborhood that do stuff like I do, like mechanics and build stuff, to where the kids see that is a really good influence, for kids to want to, do stuff on their own and learn more.
Okay. Brother Rich.
Yeah, what's good, brother? I wanted to ask you, I went to LA a hot minute ago now, but when I was there, I experienced a massive amount of segregation, as in kids stay on their block and they don't really travel out of their area.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
still the case?
Yes. And I think the younger you are, the more segregated you tend to be. And I guess it's more of a, I don't want to necessarily say self-segregation. It's just that venturing outside of your area is a little bit scary because the cops see you, man. I mean, they'll see that black face and they'll pull you over and they will harass you, you know. I'm lucky because I have, you know, had some arguments with cops, you know, when they pulled me over. But when, you know, whenever I argue with the cops, I made sure there were plenty of witnesses around just in case something goes down, right? But I guess today it doesn't matter because you have witnesses and they still will take you out, you know. So I know some of our kids too, like especially in these you know, different neighborhoods, they need to have a different mindset in that they need to believe that, you know, they can venture out and try new things. But, you know, when the word gets out that, oh, you know, Jimmy got hit in the head by the cops because he tried to go to, you know, the beach or he tried to go hang out in Hollywood. And then everyone's like, man, I don't know if I want to go there because, you know, I might get accosted by the, you know, the police. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's weird. It's crazy.
Are you satisfied with that, Rich?
No, definitely. I mean, how challenging is it when it comes to bringing youths together from different areas, or are you initiating different like initiatives for each block and area? Is there no way to do a collective movement?
Wow. You know, it's hard reaching, you know, the kids in the neighborhood. They have to want it, and the parents have to want it too. Just to let you know, I work with a group called the Council for Advancement of Black Engineers, right? And what we try to do is we you know, we mentor, you know, college students who want to pursue degrees in engineering, and we also try to reach out to our younger kids through STEM. So we have you know, STEM programs pretty much in all the different neighborhoods. So STEM is very good for reaching kids because, for example, what I do when I present, you know, electronics, or when I do a presentation for a group of STEM kids, you know, I'll show them stuff like this, which is something that I built from scratch. This is a Tesla coil. And you guys know the car Tesla. You probably heard of the guy, Nikola Tesla, who was the father of, you know, everything electronics. So I just got some plans and I built my own little Tesla coil. And basically what this thing does is when I plug it up, it shoots electricity in the air where you can see it. You know, I can't do it now because it would probably fry the laptop. but you know, kids really seeing stuff like this. So if the neighborhoods, you know, have STEM programs, and if you have kids who are interested in going to these programs, then yes, you can do it that way. But they have to want to go. The parents have to want to, you know, make them participate in these programs. Other than that, it's really difficult to get these kids in.
So in through you're going through the as you said that you was doing a lot of electrical stuff and all that stuff, but what brought you to come into engineering, or what inspired you to come to engineering?
Wow. Excellent question. Well, it was really simple, actually. I was at home one day, and I believe I was maybe 12 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I wired my room um, to, turn the TV on and off, from a distance. Had wires ran all over the place, and then I ended up blowing a fuse. And then my mom came in, and she started screaming at me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I want to be an electrician, so I'm gonna, hook up these wires." And she just looked at me and said, "You know, electrical engineers make more money."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Really?" And believe it or not, that's what actually got me into, at least got me started, right? I had no idea what engineering was all about because, like I said in the introduction, I failed college algebra 3 times. I mean, I failed a lot of classes in college. I mean, I shouldn't have graduated, but the fact that I knew that, you can make money, you can get girls, I was in. So, and also, while I was growing up, I started my own electronics business where I was, connecting car stereos and alarm systems in my neighborhood, and I actually did a lot of work for the drug dealers in the neighborhood, which was a little scary. One time I was working on this 1967 Volkswagen. I don't know if you guys remember those. You guys are a little bit younger than me, but anyway, I was getting ready to connect power to the amplifier system, so I had to pull the back seat from the car in order to get access to the battery. Well, when I pulled the back seat, there was a paper bag, like, in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled the paper bag out, and mind you, this was 1980 something, 1980 something. Pulled the paper bag out. There was $30,000 in cash in that paper bag.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, holy crap. And, so first thing came to my mind is that this guy's going to kill me if he knows that I saw his money, or he's going to think that I took some of his money. So long story short, he came back and I said, "Hey man, we found a present under the seat." And, he said, "Oh, I forgot to take that out." But anyway, um, it's, I made quite a bit of money, connecting car stereos. I mean, all my clients were not drug dealers. Some of them were. The vast majority of people that I did work for, were, regular, citizens and upstanding people. But the only thing that kept me going was that I knew that I could make much more money doing the electronic stuff than I could ever make working for McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept it up, and even though it's funny because the stuff that I do with electronics has nothing to do with what I studied for in school, which is funny because I always assume that, oh, if I'm going to be an engineer, I'm going to connect wires, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No, none of that stuff. It was all solve this problem, do this chemistry equation. And it was tough. It was really tough. But I came together with this other group of students at the university. The group was called the National Society of Black Engineers, which is a group of Black students coming together in science. And, we have chapters all throughout the U.S. And see, this is stuff that the media will never talk about. They will always say that, what are you guys doing about Black on Black crime? But, they'll never hear, anything about the National Society of Black Engineers, with 30,000 members strong. Matter of fact, we just recently, we just got our endowment fund approved. We started off with $5,000. Now we're up to $30,000. Our next goal is $100,000. And this is a big deal because we're the only chapter in the states with our own endowment fund as far as the National Society of Black Engineers is concerned. Because endowment funds, if you guys know anything about them, only the prestigious universities have them, and they have billions of dollars in there. Like I think, Harvard University has like $1 billion endowment fund, and how are they funded? By rich white people. So we're glad that we got our fund up and going, and this is the stuff you don't hear about, in the media, and this is what we're doing.
Why do you find that happens sometimes? Because there is a lot of great works, and like when we go into forms of history and we understand a lot of these famous people that have accomplished a lot of things but never get the recognition. Do you find it is because we put ourselves into other people's institutions and they get the opportunity to paint it under their own roof?
Well, for one, it's not sexy. The media, they like stuff that, if it bleeds, it leads. If it's controversial, they'll definitely put that up there. But, good works that people are doing, it's just boring. Because, I remember just sitting in some of my engineering courses, just about to blow my brains out because the stuff was just so abstract that most people just couldn't even get into it. So I think it really has to be super exciting for one in order for it to get out there. And even if it is exciting, we almost have to force it upon the media, just like Black Lives Matter. Now everyone wants to be a part of Black Lives Matter, right? I mean, it's the big thing now. And all of these major companies are hashtagging, Black Lives Matter, when before it was all lives matter, So we had to bring it to their attention. And I think it's the same with like the STEM program. Just to give you some background on the STEM program, the National Science Foundation did a study back in 2012, and out of 170,000 plus graduates, only 3,000 minorities graduated with science degrees out of almost 200,000, graduates. And I mean, that's crazy. And so what the National Science Foundation did was they started this scholarship program for STEM. So they started allocating money for STEM programs around the country. Well, if I'm not mistaken, they only allocated like maybe $3 or $4 million nationwide. Nationwide, you can't buy a soda, with $3 or $4 million if you have to supply drinks and beverages for the entire United States. That's just not enough money at all, And last year at the university that I work with, it's the University of Riverside, California. They graduated probably 5 engineering students out of 5,000? 5. So I mean, we're really lacking in science and math. I mean, it's tough. And the reason being is because, for one, our kids are not attracted to the sciences because nobody likes math. They can't deal with it. They rather not deal with it. They rather, write a rap, or or do a rap album or whatever, because that's what all the kids in the U.S. are. Everybody wants to be a rapper. Everybody has a video Everybody has a rap song. Everybody thinks they're going to get rich, being a rapper. So it's tough. It's really tough to keep our kids interested.
Okay, yeah. So, in terms of what you do, what made you come to the extent of creating your book?
Okay, this is what happened. Some years ago, wow, it's been 25 plus years ago, I was working as a brand new engineer, and they gave me the opportunity to go out to some colleges and recruit, more potential engineers. So of course, I went back to my alma mater, Cal State Northridge, in the Valley where all the stars live. And when I got to the university, I set up my booth, and I was just so excited. Where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to recruit some black engineers. This is going to be cool. So I was there probably all day, 8 hours, and only 2 black kids came by my booth who were interested in engineering. And then I found out that the engineering club that we had there at the time, back in the the 80s, the National Society of Black Engineers, they only had 1 member, one. And when I was in school there, we had probably a good 250 members.
Mm-hmm.
So I was devastated, and I said, you know what? I need to do more to reach people, to let them know about, engineering, especially our minorities. So that's when the idea of the book came about, because I figured that if I wrote a book, I could reach more people. So that's what happened.
How hard was it to transfer, what you knew and obviously your skills into now becoming an author and essentially a teacher, transferring those skills into a format that you think that will get through to people? How hard was that?
Actually writing a book was not difficult, because the book is based on, my life, but there's a lot of added drama, to make it exciting. But each chapter, I just picked a time in my life, and I just wrote. So every day I wrote probably a couple of pages. Now I'm gonna tell you the hard part. The hardest part was bringing it all together, organizing it. What chapter goes where, and how do I start, this page, and how do I bring it together so that I can make sure that there's a lesson, for anyone who reads it. So that was probably the hardest part. So it took me about a year to write the book, just draft form or whatever. But it took another 4 years to put it all together. Yeah.
Give us something like a bit of detail in what your book's about.
All right. Yes, sir. So calculus and crack. I mean, yeah, a lot of people ask me, why calculus and crack? Because I wanted to show, this kid, my character name, who goes by the name of Daquan Johnson, is a character that I created who had a dream of becoming an engineer, but the problem is that he's stuck in this neighborhood that is not conducive, to math and science. It's all about, selling drugs, gangs, and education was just, totally out of the question. So I start off with the story, basically giving a background on, what my character goes through, growing up, and as he grows up, he runs across these different situations. For example, there's one part where I write in the book where my character meets his best friend by the name of Deadly Paws. And every character in my book has a nickname and it has meaning behind it. So Deadly Paws is this one guy that I grew up with. And the reason why he has that name is because when we were young kids, I'm talking about elementary school, my one friend used to ditch class all the time, right? So his neighbors told his parents that, hey, your son is not going to school. So what Deadly Paws did was he kidnapped the neighbor's cat, and then he put a ransom note on the cat and sent it back to the neighbor and said, hey, if you tell on me again, Fluffy is a goner, So basically, actually, I'm gonna tell you what his real nickname was. His real nickname was Cat Killer, right? But in order not to be sued and all this other stuff, I changed his nickname, even though I think I had a right to use his nickname, but I just didn't want to take any chances. But anyway, his name was Cat Killer because he was accused apparently of killing people's cats in the neighborhood. That's just the story. But anyway, this guy, my best friend, he ended up becoming this huge drug dealer in Los Angeles. And it's funny because, when you're growing up with someone, you know them how they are, and this guy, he was cool. We hung out together. We did all kind of, crazy stuff. And, as we grew up, he got deeper and deeper into drugs. And the thing is, my character has to make a decision, right? Because it is fun hanging out with this guy, Deadly Paws, because he has the money, he has the girls. But at the same time, my character knows that an education is important. And he knew that, if he got caught up too much, with the street life, that he could end up in trouble. So my character, even though he had one foot in the hot pot, he always managed to stay on the right path, even though he came close to very dangerous situations. Like, for example, there's one scene where my character is in this crack house, and he was told to watch the crack house while the other drug dealers, they went to do their runs. So you got my character in the crack house with a pretty girl, probably about $100,000 worth of drugs, guns, all this stuff, And just imagine if the cops had decided to raid that crack house at the time, my character would have been gone. And actually, that would have been me gone in jail, probably just now getting out. So even though I made it out, but man, by the grace of God, because there's stuff that got caught up in that could have really got me in trouble, and not necessarily saying that I was doing anything, but just being there at a scene. Because when the cops come arrest you, you don't have to do the crime. Especially when you go to court, they're going to say you're an accessory just because you were there. So I just, by the grace of God, I made it. I was very lucky that I just didn't get caught up into anything, very, drastic and terrible.
So basically, is that the only book you have written, or have you written other books?
I have some other ones in the works. The other book that I'm writing right now is called Mini Bike Boys, and it's going to be a book for like elementary, grade school kids, because we have to hit these kids at a younger age, and this book is not necessarily, it's similar to Calculus and Crack, but it's more of a book of young kids building like motorcycles and mini bikes, and and I want to show how, you know, these kids at a very young age are actual engineers in the making, because, you know, we have, like in my neighborhood where I grew up, you know, we have these young kids, you know, like 10, 12, 14 years old. They build these motorbikes, and it's amazing what they can do. So I'm trying to, you know, hit those kids to let them know that, hey, if you can, you know, put together a mini bike like this, you can be a mechanical engineer. So that's my focus now.
Yeah, because I find that we have a lot of especially black mechanics and a lot of electricians within the black community. But I'm always wondering, why what do you think is why we don't create our own industry, or try to create to making our own cars in that perspective as a form of business?
Making our own cars, you say, or like just?
Yeah, making our own cars or manufacturing things of our own in selling out to the general. Because I find a lot of guys from the streets, they are, what can I say? They know how to fix the engines, they know how to put the engines together, they know how to put all the electrics, they know how to put systems in cars. So you know, practically they can actually make a car. But
Yeah.
no one that has said, let's all get together to able to put in this together. Why would you feel that there is no kind of unity or some structure to put together in place as a lot of these people go into education and learn about engineering?
Well, for one, there's a huge lack of resources and opportunity to do such, you know, a thing. You know, like I wanted to start my own electronics um, storefront, you know, when I was in college back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem I had was, for one, I was still in school, and then I needed people to help me. And I did reach out to a few brothers to come help me, but you know, they were just afraid to come, you know, start something like that. And then, you know, of course, you know, there's just a lot of animosity and jealousy among, you know, a lot of, you know, blacks, at least where I grew up. And if you got $1 more than the next guy, they will hate you forever. Um, Never brag about what you have in the neighborhood, because they will kill you for it, for one. And even if you find individuals who are interested in putting something together, a lot of times they'll cheat you out of your money. I've had that happen to me. But I don't think that the unity is unique, while the lack of unity is unique among, you know, African Americans. I mean, corporate America, you know, their companies break up all the time, you know, because of disagreements.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the difference with them is that, you know, they have, you know, the capital to at least start something. You know, it's much easier for them to get the capital to move forward, as opposed to us, you know, who we have to ask. Like, for example, I got to ask my dad, hey, Pop, you got $400? I want to start a business, you know. So it's we just don't have the resources, we don't have the capital, and then we don't have the unity. It's really tough.
Mm.
Yeah.
And how have you found it through this pandemic at this precise moment? Because you know, a lot of, like at the moment, most of the kids, they can't go to school. You're getting a lot of people staying indoors. Not really nothing maneuvering around. How would you say you've maneuvered, and what do you see for the future for these children?
You know, it's really hard to answer that question,
Mm-hmm.
namely because we know so little about COVID-19. You know, in my research, I found that you know, the coronavirus has been around for a while, And the first time that the coronavirus hit was back in, I believe 2003. I think that was COVID 2003 or COVID 2006. Well, no, I'm sorry. They called that one back in 2003. That was the coronavirus 1. And then the one that we're dealing with now is coronavirus 2. Now, that coronavirus 1 was actually more deadly than the virus that we're dealing with now. But the difference was it didn't spread as easily as the current virus. And that whole hydroxychloroquine that our president keeps talking about, with his crazy self, that was a drug used to treat the initial coronavirus. And it did have some benefits, at the time, for that virus. Now, one of my mentors in my group, Dr. Ernie Levister, he was actually the dean of engineering at the university that I mentor at. He's now retired, and he spends most of his time, helping, with these mentoring groups. This guy is something else. He's a chemical engineer and a medical doctor out of Harlem, New York. I mean, brilliant guy, and real humble. And I was talking to him about the virus, and basically what he said to me was that biology is totally different from engineering, in that in engineering, 1 + 2 will always equal 3, right? I mean, engineering follows a path. You can write equations and do this and do that, and you can always reach the same conclusion. But in biology, you never know what's going on in biology. You can't apply an equation to biology and say, oh, okay, the virus is going to be gone in 2 years. It just doesn't work like that, mainly because this virus is so brand new that no one really knows how to deal with it. And if you hear people say that they understand the virus, they're lying. Because when I read, some of the books on the various viruses, one discussion was about the HIV virus, which I didn't even know was a spillover virus. Well, actually, I did know, but I just didn't know the terminology. Spillover meaning that it came from animal to human. And when you're studying viruses, you're always looking for patient zero, or where the virus actually started, like what creature actually transmitted the virus to humans. And during the studies of the HIV virus, they sampled blood from different primates, gorillas, monkeys, so forth and so on, and snakes, bats. So just real quick, they must have tested over 5,000 different animals and species, and to this day they still have not found patient zero. So,
because I always ask the question, in like LA, how has people treated the pandemic in LA at this moment, and how are people maneuvering? Because the sun is out, the heat is rising, and is it still increasing, or is it going down?
The virus?
Yeah, in LA.
Oh man, it's increasing big, like wildfire. LA, you go to LA right now, it's just like any other day. It's like people, like I know the younger generation, anyone below 30 years of age, it's just like any other day. But people that are my age and older, I'm 53. A lot of us aren't messing around. I mean, I wear a whole condom suit when I go outside. I am not, man. I mean, I close every orifice because I don't want that virus sneaking in, and getting me. But it's weird, and of course, there's so much conflicting information from the White House because, Trump with his crazy ass, he's telling people, oh, I'm not gonna wear a mask, So a lot of people believe that the virus is a hoax.
Mm.
I said, no, this virus is real. I know people who have died from it. I have friends who have the virus right now. This one young lady out in Atlanta, double pneumonia as a result of the virus. Thank God she's pulling through, but no, this virus is really attacking people.
So in this situation, how are you finding engineering, or have you put the gloves down, or are you still going through learning in engineering? Because they say you never stop learning. What has kept you going in this time of being indoors in forms of engineering?
Yeah, I work on a lot of little mini projects. For example, this right here is a battery, but it's not your normal battery. This is called an 18650 lithium ion battery. This is the same battery that runs the Tesla, right? But you got about 10,000 of these batteries in the Tesla. Now, if I was to compare it with like your standard AA battery, you can see that, this battery is a little bit larger, and this battery packs probably 5 to 10 times the punch of a standard, AA battery. So what I do is, I build different battery packs to power, all different types of atom products. That's just stuff that I do on the side. I build Bluetooth speaker boxes. I do a lot of study of like ancient architecture and engineering. For example, right now I'm doing this one study on how the pyramids in Egypt were constructed, and it's funny because the pyramids were constructed so precisely, it blows modern engineers away, because all they had was like a string and a weight, when it came to measurements.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, Black people built the pyramids, and they said, oh, this is impossible for them to do such a feat. So they had to have help by aliens. I'm like, what? Aliens? I mean, there are stories about aliens coming down, building the pyramids. And I think the reason why they say that is because they don't want to give us any credit for that. So, I'm doing stuff like that. And, trying to exercise, picked up some weight. So, try to wait until it, gets a little late outside, so that there's not a lot of people around. So I'll go walk the mountains, and I do a little writing here and there. I'm still working. I work at home. I haven't been into the office since about March. So a lot of Zoom meetings and work at home. It's crazy.
Okay, so in looking at the future tenses, what does the future hold for you, and what would I say your major end goal of where you would like to be?
I want to come back out to London and hang out with Mr. Riggs. Yeah, man. We're still doing, some traveling, but of course everything has been halted as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, whenever this, what I need to say is hopefully we survive this, because this is serious. But whenever this pandemic is over, I definitely would like to get out and do a little bit more, traveling, do a little bit more face-to-face mentoring, with kids, and just trying to help out in those ways, if I'm able to. Yeah.
Okay, Brother Rich, are you there? Okay, he's a bit busy, but in saying that,
No,
Um,
I am here. I am here. Sorry, I'm in a place where there's this little reception, and I'm in a crowded place. I was listening to everything that the brother was saying. Um, Outside of LA, do you see your initiatives being rolled out in other places, or is it something that you want to work in conjunction with mainstream schools or colleges?
Uh, ask the question a different way. I'm not necessarily following.
in
Like,
intent your book, your second book that you are doing.
Okay.
are you looking
Oh,
to? Yeah, go on.
reach out
Go on.
to okay, other like being like for example, London or just other countries or other
Well, other
states,
states to begin with.
other
Yeah,
states.
other states would be more feasible in the first place. But
Yeah.
obviously, because it's educational, if you can crack that code, then most of the time, educational things can be rolled out anyway. So, that would be the hope. But how do you see the future as far as geographically moving outward? Or is this something you want to stay and concentrate in LA on?
Well, I would love to venture out beyond my boundaries, but financially it's hard. I have traveled to several different states, promoting the book and and doing panel discussions and so forth. But man, plane tickets, hotels, it's just expensive. It's expensive for me to foot the bill myself. So right now, I'm just gonna have to stay put here, with my little group and try to help, the kids that need help here.
Okay. If people wanted to still purchase your books, how would they purchase them, and where can they go to purchasing them?
Amazon.com. Just type in the title, Calculus and Crack, and bam, there it is.
Okay. Brother Rich, before we end the show, as time has come to an end.
Yeah, I mean, thank you again for joining us. I think it's important for us to be talking to people with real skills and not just, writing about stuff. Authors are good, but I'm always interested in people that can write and transfer their real life skills into, a story, give it context. So, I hope the best for your movement. I have got a friend in Philadelphia who's also doing a movement called Urban Nerds Worldwide.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yes, similar elk, pushing the fact that good schooling, good grades, maths, English, these levels of subjects should be approached at a high level, and it's cool also to have that. So yeah, you're definitely onto something. There's other people of like mind out there, so definitely I see legs for your movement,
Wow.
and it's
Appreciate.
definitely something we need. You get me? And hopefully, I can put you in contact with my guy in Philadelphia who's doing that, and maybe there's some works there that can be done because obviously he's trying to reach out to different states as well as on a worldwide basis.
Oh,
So
I would definitely.
yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, I definitely appreciate that. Definitely.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I mean, as you form out your movement, please contact us. Let us know when you've reached any milestones that you want to talk about or
Okay.
promote, and we can
Okay.
definitely bring you back on and create a bigger network on that. Because again, we're all about Black family first here. That's the
Wow.
key element to the
Wow.
building of the
That
Black nation. So yeah,
that.
much appreciated for coming on, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. And I definitely want to thank you, Mr. Riggs, man. I remember the first time I met you, I hopped off the train and there you were. Like, there he is, and you definitely laid out the red carpet, for my family and myself. And I never forget what you taught us, especially when we went to the different museums and how you broke down the different paintings. And I never forget when you said, "You see the black man right there? You see how small he is? Now look at the white man. Look how big he is. You know what that represents, right?" I never forget that, brother. I really appreciate those. So I have a different appreciation for art now, when I go to the different museums. So I'll never forget that, man.
Mm.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. So, family, as we're coming to a close, this Sunday we have a big special guest who was supposed to
Also,
be on Wednesday. Her name is Professor Bello. Diana Bello. She's going to be coming in on the topic of the Haitian Revolution. So she's going to be contacting us all the way from Haiti. She's
yeah,
done
that's
great
gonna be a big show.
with Professor James Smalls. She apologizes for the technical problems, but we said not to worry. We can wait till Sunday. And you know what? It's going to be big on Sunday. So,
That's it.
to you, family, watch out for that. So that will be 3 o'clock EST time. What time will it be up in your over in LA?
Right now,
If it's 3 o'clock, if it's 3 o'clock in New York, how will it be?
East Coast time. What is it? West Coast time. It's another 2 hours,
well,
isn't it?
it's 1 o'clock right now. So New York is 4:15 right now. So
So it'll be about 2 o'clock your time, I think.
yeah.
Or what? No, matter of fact, I think it's the same time. 12 o'clock your time it will be on Sunday. So yes. So I'm asking for everyone to log in. And you know what I've always said, sometimes we've got to support everyone within our black family because no one else is going to support us. No one's going to encourage us except for ourselves. So we have to go back to ourselves to be able to elaborate what we do and what we're about because it's that time. But before I even head out, we remember we're all people in London and in the UK. We're all galvanizing and reaching to the Windrush Square in Brixton, where the reparations meet up in the reparations rebellion. Instead of doing the march, we're going to be all meeting up, causing a roadblock. So please make your way down there into showing your face to show that we have a voice, we have a face, and we can do things as one big family. So I hope to see you down there. Before we head out, Rich, is there any last words before we go?
You know what it is. Support black media. As Riggsy said, come out, support the reparations movement. There is a march that's happening. I can't remember the details, but there is a march happening. Look out for that flyer. But again, I hope to see everybody down in Brixton. Yeah, me coming together as one, having a good day in the sun, and remembering what we're there for. So, big up to everybody who's tuned in today. Yeah, peace and powers, and
Yeah.
we'll see you on the streets tomorrow.